So thank you very much again for the possibility to present. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor for me. Today I'd like to present about the implementation strategies for suicide prevention. And I hope that you can see my next slide. Yeah, I have to go back. So now it works very well. I will start to present about suicides, afterwards about suicide prevention, and then afterwards about implementation strategies. Related to suicides, I will start with key facts of the World Health Organization, and afterwards I will show suicide rates, global suicide rates, and I will come at the end to Taiwan and the situation in your country. Well, like I said a few minutes ago, we have more than 700,000 people. Yeah, they die to suicide every year. For me, it's again and again incredible to see these data. And suicide is, like I said it before, the third leading cause for young people globally. 73% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries. Like you know, I'm coming from Switzerland, Germany, and to underline it again and again. So the low and middle income countries are very, very important and related to that topic. The reasons are multifaceted, influenced by social, cultural, and other factors, and this is related to the life course. So, again, for us professionals, it's very important to realize it's a lifelong topic. For every suicide, there are many more people who attempt suicide. A pre-suicide attempt is an important risk factor for suicide in the general population. I allow myself to go more into details, and here you can see the newest suicide rates by country in 25. And the dark blue country is Greenland, and I will come back to that country later on, and I would like to start with Taiwan. You see it's 16 per 100K, and in Switzerland we have an average of 11.7 per 100K. And if you compare this data with Greenland, the data is 59.6 per 100K. And there was a brand new publication from 2025 exploring suicide in Greenland, a scoping review of literature. And our colleagues underlined that there are three stressors during childhood: exposure to harmful use of alcohol, domestic violence, and sexual assault before the age of 18. And they presented again and again three other components. This is loneliness, conflicts with any kind of relationship, and mistrust and painful emotions. I allow myself to come to China, and the suicide there is the fifth leading cause of death and accounts of over 1/4 suicides worldwide. This is well known in Geneva at the World Health Organization's headquarters. In contrast with Western countries in which men are more likely to commit suicide, most suicide victims in China are women. I would like to give a brief ad here. Women's suicide mortality has significantly dropped These are colleagues from Italy, e.g. with rapid urbanization, migration from rural to urban areas. I think that you are familiar with these details. So, and I found this very sad data in the Taiwan news. Suicide returns to Taiwan's top 10 causes of death. So more than 4,000 suicides in 24 in your country, with the highest rate among seniors aged 65 and over. I allow myself to come to suicide prevention. The World Health Organization delivered key facts, and I think these key facts are very important and very interesting for your country. So the World Health Organization started late. Yeah, they started in 2014 with the first ever World Suicide Prevention Report. The title is Preventing Suicide, a Global Imperative, and I show you the next slide that you can see it. So on the left side you can see the cover, Preventing Suicide, a Global Imperative, and you see Mrs. Chan. I think you are familiar with Mrs. Chan. So she said, yet suicides are preventable. In 2014, this report encourages countries to continue the good work where it is already ongoing and to place suicide prevention high on the agenda, regardless of where a country stands currently in terms of suicide rate or suicide prevention activities. This was a motivator, it was a motivation for countries to start wherever they are related to that topic. So, more or less 10 years later, the suicide prevention documentation from the World Health Organization analyzed that there were laws of at least 23 countries worldwide and where suicides are criminalized. And you see the green or the green-colored land countries on the left hand, and suicide attempts continue to be actively punished in some of these countries. And yeah, for me, it's again and again impressive to see the countries, the name of the countries, and also the World Health Organization published in 24 about it. So it's still a hot topic that we have this criminalization in 23 countries worldwide. So the key recommendations of the World Health Organization are to focus on developing national suicide prevention strategies and how important they are for every country, also here for Taiwan. Budgeting for post-decriminalization and training for the first-line responders, professionals like us, establishing rights-oriented community-based mental health services, formulating new mental health-related laws and policies that promote mental health-related laws and policies that promote quality care and the right of persons with mental health conditions and psychosocial disabilities. I think this is very, very important. And there is another field which I would like to highlight today. It's about the media situation and reporting of suicide. And the World Health Organization underlined again and again how important it is how we report about suicides. So the fourth edition of Preventing Suicide is a resource of media professionals produced in collaboration with the International Association for Suicide Prevention, summarizes current evidence on the impact of media reporting of suicide and provides practical guidance for media professionals on how and in which form to report on suicides responsibly. The key recommendations of the World Health Organization are there is an overwhelming evidence that the media can play a significant and important, I would say very important role in either strengthening or undermining suicide prevention efforts. For example, evidence shows that vulnerable persons, such as those with a history of suicide attempts or thoughts, or those exposed to suicide, are at an increased risk of engaging in imitative behaviors following major reports of suicide, particularly if the coverage is extensive, prominent, sensational, explicitly describes the methods. I think this is very important. The methods of suicide make suicide appear to be normal and acceptable, and perpetuates widely held myths of death. There are measures that can be taken at the population, subpopulation, and individual levels to prevent suicide and self-harm. I think this is very common for all of us, and there is a brand new suicide prevention program by the World Health Organization. The name is Live Life. It's it recommends the following key effective evidence-based interventions. So you see the first point, limited access to the means of suicide. For example, e.g. with pesticides, firearms, and so on. And I added information from the US. Firearms were used in over 3/4 of suicide deaths among males over age 65. And I added where I have found this scientific publication. Interact, the second point, with the media for responsible reporting of suicide. This is very important. Foster social economic life skills in adolescence, and very important, and therefore in red, early identification, and now it's very difficult, assess, manage, and follow up anyone who is affected by suicidal behaviors. So the World Health Organization concluded this need to go hand in hand with the following foundational pillars. So we have to analyze the situation, and we have to analyze the factors. And I'm very well aware that it is very complicated. Until today, you will not find a document related to factors by the World Health Organization in that context, because factors are multifaceted, like I've said before. But the collaboration in several factors, multisectoral collaboration, is very important. Awareness raising, capacity building, financing, and monitoring and evaluation, to name a few more in that context. You see brand new data from the World Health Organization. I allow myself to come to implementation strategies, and there was a desire from your side to present about the situation in Sweden. First, I would like to start with worldwide aspects, and afterwards I will come to the situation in Sweden, which is very special. So, in 24, the Chan and others published about strategies that can be vital, and this is mentioned too, the implementation and dissemination of evidence-based suicide prevention interventions and programming. And you see it's again and again a very hot area. How to evaluate and how to structure the data and to analyze this data. And the World Health Organization, you see, from 2018, said a country that decides to work on its national responses, plural, to suicide prevention, has an opportunity to tackle suicide prevention in a way that it is meaningful to that country context and culture. It's impossible to compare all details that we have in Europe, for example, with your country. You have another situation, you have another culture, and this is very important to tackle it. In countries where suicide prevention activities have not yet taken place, the emphasis it's on identifying stakeholders and developing activities where the need is greatest or where resources, very important resources, already exist. It is also important to improve surveillance. In countries with some existing suicide prevention activities, a situation and factor analysis, again, these factors analysis can show what is already in place and where gaps need to be filled. Countries that already have a relatively comprehensive national response should focus on evaluation and improvement, updating their data again and again, and please every year, with analysis and emphasizing effectiveness and efficiency. Resources that should be allocated to achieve both short to medium and long-term objective. There should be effective planning and plural strategies should be regularly evaluated with findings feeding into future planning, not to start again and again to create a new wheel. A suicide prevention strategy needs to be multisectoral, involving not only the health sector, but also other sectors, such as, very important, education, labor, social welfare, agriculture, business, justice, law, defense, politics, and the media. I come more or less to the end with the World Health Organization. In that context, the strategy should be tailored to each country's cultural and social context again and again. It's so important. When conceptualization and implanting our suicide prevention strategies through an action plan, it is necessary to specify clear and understandable for me and you objectives, targets, indicators, factors, timelines, milestones, designated responsibilities and budgets. Without an action plan, and this is also my opinion, it is likely that process will fall short. I come to a very important point in that context. Address stigma. Stigma, a mark. We have it in every country in the world. Stigma related to suicide remains a major obstacle and barrier to suicide prevention efforts. Those who are left behind or who have attempted suicide often face considerable stigma within their communities, families, which may prevent them from seeking help. Stigma can become, and subsequently, of course, become a huge barrier to accessing suicide preventive or prevention services. This is of a particular concern in countries where suicide acts are criminalized. Furthermore, high levels of stigma may negatively affect recording, analyzing, and reporting of suicide and suicide attempts. To conclude, even with a well-designed suicide prevention strategy, barriers can arise that threaten its success and its sustainability. We have seen it in the past again and again in several countries. Overcoming barriers together is vital and important, and all of you are very important in that context. I allow myself to come to Sweden. And I'm not sure that you're familiar what has happened in Sweden. So they started in 2008. The Swedish Parliament decided on a national action program for suicide prevention with the name Vision Zero Policy. And from the beginning, there was a huge discussion, what is zero? Is it possible to have a zero program? The vision of the program was that no one should be in a situation of such vulnerability that suicide is seen as the only way out. And there was a history, of course. The first national suicide preventive program in Sweden, described in a report of support in suicidal crisis, was established in 1995 by the Swedish National Council for Suicide Prevention, guided by the National Institute of Public Health. Like you can see, the Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare, and the National Center for Suicide Research and Prevention of Mental Health. But, this was the point, this program was never presented to the Swedish Parliament for ratification, and this was not the best idea. This fact could be seen as a drawback for implementation, since the prevention or preventive activities had to rely on the goodwill and benevolence of public authorities, stakeholders, and various organizations and individuals. Like you can imagine, this was very difficult. Goodwill is goodwill. After a while, the second national suicide preventive program was created by the National Institute of Public Health, now called, again, a new name, Public Health Agency of Sweden, and the National Board of Health and Welfare, with a lot of support of experts in Sweden. This program was ratified by the Swedish Parliament in 2008 and put in force by the Swedish government, which announced the Vision Zero, again, policy for suicide. The policy sends a strong signal, but only a signal to the whole society and population that the topic is important, and for the first time, suicidal person and their families felt more or less that priority was finally being given to them. And there was one author, Mr. Carlson and his team, who said, okay, sorry, it's only a signal. We are missing a lot. I will give you at the end the reference related to Mr. Carlson. Parliamentary ratification not only gave legal status to the National Action Programme for Suicide Prevention, but also contributed to implementation of the following 9 areas. And I think this is important for you here in Taiwan. Promote good life opportunities for less privileged groups. And we have these groups in every country, not only in your country. But to focus on that, I think it's very important. Second, reduce alcohol consumption in the population and in groups with high risk for suicide. Reduce access to means and methods of suicide. Well aware that point 3 is very, very complicated. View suicide as a psychological mistake. This word mistake was discussed around the world. Is it a mistake or not? I think, well, it was published. Yeah, this word was published. But please reflect about the word mistake. But you see the direction. Improve medical, psychological, and, for me, very important, psychosocial initiatives. Distribute knowledge about evidence-based methods for reducing suicide. 7, very important, raise skills levels among staff and other key individuals in the care services. Yeah, this is you, this is me, yeah, when we talk about care services. I also train my students in my lectures about this point, and I think it's very important. Perform root cause or event analysis after suicide. Support, like we have seen this morning, during this morning, about or related to voluntary organizations. So the Public Health Agency of Sweden received a complex mandate, which was very good, from the government in 2015 to coordinate suicide prevention at national level. According, the agency developed the coordination and cooperation between relevant government agencies and stakeholders in order to monitor the implementation of suicide preventive activities throughout the country. Since it was approved, the second National Suicide Prevention Program has been, again, you see the word, a positive signal. Until today, a positive signal, and I will bring more data in 1-2 minutes. In terms of increased awareness within the Swedish society and among bodies in the healthcare and public health systems. I love statistics, and all my students know it. And I would like to present you this brand new data from the Karolinska Institute from 25. So you have seen the data, hope you can see it. In 2015, it was 19.2. And to compare it more or less with the current data in 2023, you see, yeah, a reduction, but not in a zero context, to 18.4. And this is also a huge discussion in Sweden. So they have evaluated all the data and have seen what has happened between 15 and 23. A zero policy was introduced beside this zero vision to compare it, yeah, for you during this session. I think it's very important that you know that, for road accidents in Sweden in 1997. So it was the same concept, road safety improvements and changes to traffic laws and regulation resulted in a, you see it, 50% reduction in deaths due to motor vehicle accidents over a 20-year time period. 50%. And it's very important that you know in that context that financial support through this Vision Zero policy for suicide has been greatly insufficient compared to the Vision Zero policies for traffic accidents. So finances have an influence and are very important that we know it. More funding is needed for permanent activities. And this is important for Germany, Switzerland, but also here in your country. To ensure that the best possible prevention and treatment are provided, there needs to be an increase in adequately trained human professionals like you in the healthcare and public mental health systems, backed to or by continuous development and dissemination of evidence-based methods which reduce suicidal behaviors. So evidence-based is very important. We have a lot of discussions to announce that to you again and again in Germany and Switzerland. How important is evidence-based? But if you have evidence-based data, you can underline and support how effective programs and activities are. The Vision Zero policy may sometimes be misinterpreted. What means it exactly? Until today, this is a huge discussion in Sweden. The policy goals is to ensure that everybody does everything within their power and competences to provide the best prevention, care, treatment, and rehabilitation to at-risk and suicidal persons. One of my colleagues in Sweden, Danuta Wasserman, perhaps you have known her or seen publications of her. She is published in 2025 together with other colleagues in Sweden about the Vision Zero in suicide prevention and suicide preventive methods. And I allow myself to show you the book, because it's a book chapter. It's the Vision Zero handbook that you can find easily in the internet. And she has written, together with her colleagues, a conclusion. And she wrote, like all Vision Zero policies, Vision Zero for suicide should be seen as an experiential goal, bringing together several sectors at all levels of society. This is very important. We need the society when we discuss and implement programs. But in order to succeed, it must be ambitious. So, and then she underlined aims. I step forward through the second part. To achieve the goal of Vision Zero for suicide, evidence-based, again, evidence-based suicide prevention strategies need to be widely implemented in both public health and healthcare settings. Substantial financial support is, again, very important. We need the finances to implement. Nothing has changed. These strategies need to be catered to respective conceptual environments and, again, evaluated to improve their quality and effectiveness. I work and I have the possibility as president-elect of the World Federation for Mental Health to work together with 193 countries and governments in the world. And I can say and underline how important it is to discuss from the beginning about finances. Please don't forget it. Don't discuss finances at the end. Start with finances at the beginning. So, my conclusion at the end to discuss about it, it requires detailed knowledge of the individual country and circumstances within that country. You are the expert for Taiwan. Your knowledge, your experiences, your professional knowledge, but also your knowledge about your culture and about your society. These are the components which are so important. It requires proven expertise to implement strategies of this kind. It requires sufficient financial resources to implement and evaluate such strategies. The focus on people in the context of suicide prevention must be central. Please, scientific issues are very important. Like you know, I'm a professor at university. It's important, I know that. But please don't forget the people. You're working for your patients, your clients, the people in Taiwan. Thank you very much for your attention, for my presentation, and again, thank you from my side. I promised something at the end, the reference. So let's see that I can show it to you. This is Mr. Carlson and his team about the critical view related to the Swedish Vision Zero for suicide. It's a very interesting article. Yeah, perhaps it might be helpful for you. Thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. And then, any question from our floor? 大家有没有什么问题要问的？我们还有2分钟。还有没有线上？ OK， 请吴嘉怡老师。
Hi, Professor Sabine. Thank you very much for your wonderful speech, particularly your encouragement for our country to move forward based on our cultural contexts. Yeah, I have one question. Since you highlight the financial issue, I wonder your advice in this aspect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because we know that it's multidisciplinary efforts. Yeah. So at the very beginning, you mentioned that we do need to consider finance. Yeah, in advance. So what's your advice? Yeah, thank you.
Well, I have a lot of experiences in that field during decades now. And I know it's very difficult to discuss about money and finances, to open the door and to tell a government, okay, we need 2-3 million to start. So at the beginning, the colleagues say, oh, it's a lot of money, my goodness. Yeah? And then you have to present evidence-based data. Very clear. You have more than, or you had more than 4,000 suicides last year here in your country. Present the data and say, okay, we have a program developed, implemented with these data and effectiveness. We think we can be successful for reason A, B, C. Not to say, I feel, I think, I mentioned, forget it. Evidence-based data. But announced that it is important that you have these 2-3 millions to start. If they realize, okay, this can be a successful option for Taiwan. You will see, perhaps they will discuss, okay, I will deliver 1.9 million to you. Okay, accept. This is also my suggestion. Accept. But step forward, and afterwards you can apply again for 100,000 again, a little bit later, step by step. I think, and this is also my experiences in the past, trust is very important. If a government has the trust that your program might be successful and that you have excellent aims, excellent expectations, but don't use, again, words like I feel, I mention, give them data, solid data. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine. And any question more?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sabine. Your great speech. As I know, in Sweden, it's the 10 years program. Maybe talk about it's about you. I think that's very fantastic. I mean, it's new idea. Can you share some experience with us about your country's policy, about the 10 years policy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also here, please allow me to say we need steps. So 10 years period is a long time, and to present the starter situation or starting situation, difficulties during the next years, positive effects, but also negative effects. And this, my colleague Danuta Wasserman has underlined that it's a long duration, 10 years, and during 10 years, a lot of things can change, and a lot of things can happen. And if we discuss about the Swedish program, please always reflect about the situation, for example, in your country, in Taiwan. I have a completely different situation in Switzerland. Suicide attempts in Switzerland are very prominent. Yeah. So also very, very, very rich countries, yeah, have this topic in their countries. And again, we see it quite often around the world. It's a topic related to younger people. And what I've underlined here for Taiwan, it's a topic for elderly people over 65.
3 or 5 years ago, the elderly is very focused for suicide prevention. But right now, in recent 2 years, maybe we focus on the young people.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it was helpful for you. Otherwise, please contact me. You have all my email address on the slides. Please contact me. I'm delighted to support you here in Taiwan. Thank you.